Good morning, English 149. This is Grant. I hope you had a good first day back from the weekend. So today we're going to get a little more into research methodology. And this will apply to both projects that talk about fan fiction and those of you that are writing fan fiction, right? So these are different ways that you can understand the genre and the conventions and what's going on in order to write better or research better. So far we've been talking about the theories of fan fiction. What is adaptation? What is fan fiction? What is historical fiction, right? And what I want you to do is to continue to use those tools, but what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at how to apply those to texts, right? How to start looking at super categories of fan fiction. And one methodology I'm going to show you is called distant reading. So far, I've asked you, in your reading of the book covers and a couple of the readings is to close read, right? To pay attention to language and certain aspects around that. Now, what I'm going to show you is how to what we call distant read, and that's a methodology of the digital humanities. So we're looking at how words frequent texts, how do they co-occur, so we can kind of see, instead of reading line by line, let's look at the entire text or let's look at a group of texts. So this term distant reading comes from a literary scholar from Stanford named Franco Moretti. So it's basically, again, to look at the larger categories at play. And when I'm saying distant reading in digital humanities, it's oftentimes we're reading through technology. So it's either, we're looking at classifiers, we're looking at frequency, we're looking at co-occurrence, but it's using computers somehow to read books. And there's some good positive notions around asking computers to read, right? We can say, how can computers help us understand traditional reading processes in a new way, right? Can we have computers, while teaching them how to read, do we find out and make explicit some of the things we do implicitly in reading? How can we find new ways of reading through technology, right? How can looking at a text from its entirety or a group of thousands of texts help us to become better readers? How can we use computers to understand complicated categories like emotions and themes? So there are a lot of algorithms that companies use to see if their products or campaigns are doing well, so we can try to apply those same methods to text. So one really interesting example of this is a scholar in the University of Illinois. His name is Ted Underwood. And this is from a paper called Why Literary Time is Measured in Minutes. And what he did was, for every 250 words, him and his research assistants coded, right? So 250 words, how much time had passed. Was it a day? Was it a week? Was it an hour? Was it 15 minutes? So forth. And you can look, which is really interesting. It seems like from the 18th century to the present, that literary time kind of sped up, right? And we could start to think about the role of technology in that. But again, we wouldn't know that until we had these computers to show us like what this looks like as a super category, right? And so this is where, some good aspects of digital humanities can tell us more about books than we would normally see. So one method of this, besides counting words or counting literary time, is something called topic modeling. And basically what it is you're taking a bunch of documents. So say I have 5,000 books, and I'm trying to find patterns in those books. And what it's doing is it's looking at co-occurrences of words grouping together, and those are a topic. And what a lot of the times this is used for, if you're searching through journals, they're not coming up with those metadata tags. Those are being generated automatically through these topic models. So they help you to search documents to figure out, whatever I'm looking for, things about evolutionary biology, right? I'm looking for journal articles around that. So that's what kind of topic model is. It's one of the most widely used digital humanities tools. There's another way that you can look at it. So topic models can give you, certain aspects like, how close topics are to one another. So in this one, history, political theory, morality, and religion are all very closely tied together in these documents. And so we can look at how religion shapes the way in which we conceive of history. Now, I'm giving you positive things. There's also negative, right? And this is the debate that's happening in literary studies right now, right? How does computer-assisted interpretation undermine the very point of reading, right? Are we oversimplifying reading to make it easier for computers to show us, right? Like, we're turning words into numbers, and is that the right thing to do? Do these techniques show us anything new, or are they just fancy ways to describe what we already know? Like, do we already know that literary time is speeding up? Maybe. I don't know. But sometimes, if we're saying, in the 18th century, the sentimental novel was very widespread. We already know that, and then I don't need a computer to tell me that. And then how does reading, with technology exacerbate racial, social, and economic inequalities? This is one debate where if the data is biased, right, our results are going to be biased. So what corpus of material you have, what you choose to look at has a lot of implications for what you get out. So, a lot of this has become debates around, if the data is racist, you're going to get racist results. Okay, so, one common technique that you're going to see today is word clouds. And this one is not exactly wonderful. You can see Queen Elizabeth Lord in this example has bigger words. And so in these word cloud examples, the bigger words are more frequent words. So a lot of the time we call tokens words when we're processing through algorithms. So it usually create the most frequently occurring words in a text or work set where the size of the word is displayed in proportion to the number of times it occurs. A lot of times we're removing what's called stop words. So articles like the, me, you, those can be specified by you. So you can remove, particular words. The problem is, if you remove too many, you're kind of what we would call overfitting. So you're kind of manipulating the data to show what you want to show. So you got to be careful about stop words. You want to reveal unique words, but you don't want to stop yourself from seeing anything. All right. One common example, if you've never used this, I would highly recommend just Googling Google Ngram. So Google Ngram Viewer allows you to see occurrences of a word over time. And it uses the Google Book corpus, which has billions and billions of words. And so an example here is enthusiasm is a word that has changed meaning significantly over the years. And so we can see, after 1750, it really takes off. And, there is a lot of use in the 17th century, but you can see what happens in the 18th century and the late 17th century is that enthusiasm is talked about as a religious experience. And then in the 18th century, we make fun of it. And towards the end of the 18th century, it becomes the kind of secularized word that we use today. So anyway, you can plot at word use and kind of come up with, you can see this pattern. And this is where it gets into the debate. Like we already know in that period of time, in the late 17th, late 18th century, we know the word transitions its meaning. And so you can see that in this graph. So this graph gives us extra proof, but it doesn't tell us anything new. So what you want to be careful on when you look at these graphs is a lot of times they obscure the text in what you're looking at. So you always want to think about what is the corpus, what is the set of texts that are used to generate this data, right? The data is biased, right? Your results are going to be biased. And then think about, what does this former rating lose or gain? How can this it be approached in ways that minimize loss and maximize gain? And think about interpretation, right? Always think, never let a graph think for you. So be critical of graphs and visualizations. They can be pretty, but they can also obscure the text. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to apply one of these techniques, the word cloud, to fan fiction texts in order for us to see some patterns. So I will see you in the next video.